hooks. The other difference is that opportunity to interact with the readers. So I have some friends who post on Kindle Vella, and they use their social media to kind of take input from readers on what should come next, or to kind of tease up each week's episode. So there's the opportunity to make it a little more interactive during the process of actually posting the story.
Okay, so then, because you've got both ebooks as well as Vella, right?
Yes, I do.
So now, so it makes it sound like just writing a regular book is a lot easier than doing a Vella book.
I think they each have their own challenges. I find Vella really motivating because I know that I have readers waiting for each week's episode. So I write mine several weeks ahead of what I'm posting, so I have time to edit them, and I have an alpha team who reads them, but I still find it really motivating. It keeps me writing. So that's helpful, but there's not a chance to go back really and edit the story as a whole, because you're posting it, unless you write the entire thing up front, which some authors do. But otherwise, if you're writing it as you're going, like a lot of us are, then you kind of have to, whatever you posted before is canon now. You just have to go with it. So it's a little bit of a challenge in that sense.
Right. Now, do you plot your story on Vella, or are you just kind of like what's referred to as a pantser? Do you just kind of like let it just flows and goes whichever way it goes?
So I try to be a plotter.
Yeah.
I'm a plotter at heart. I like to have the plan. But then my plan always ends up derailing at some point, and I find myself, the characters just insist on going another direction. So I would say I'm somewhere in the middle, because I always end up having to stop every few chapters and replot because my characters have just veered off somewhere. I'm sort of a plantser there in the middle.
Good. All right. So now there's various aspects on Vella, and there's, for anybody that's brand new to this, there's all types of questions that came up when I did it, and I just had to finally I watched some videos that you suggested I watch, and then I just went and got your story and just started listening to it just see, okay, what is this and how does this work? And it was a lot of fun. So there's various features on the Kindle Vella which is different and have different significances than on regular books. So we're going to talk about, you got follow, fave, crown, and reviews. So we'll break those down because those all have different significances specifically for Vella. So first of all, yes. What's the significance of follow?
Okay, so follow enables a reader to follow a particular story. So if you follow an author on their Amazon author account, for example, you'll get notifications on anything they publish. But in Vella, it's set up differently to where you follow a particular story. So if you're really enjoying a story, you can click follow, and then you'll get notifications in your Kindle app every time a new episode of that story posts.
Right. Okay, that makes sense. So now fave.
So faves is essentially the Vella ranking system. So they have a top faved leaderboard, and it shows the top 250 stories in all of Vella, every genre. And then readers can sort that leaderboard by genre, and the way to make it onto that top fave is actually reader votes. So every week readers get one fave, and they only are eligible to use it if they have spent tokens to unlock an episode that week. And so as soon as Sunday hits, if they log into Kindle Vella, or the first time they log in, that week's fave, there's kind of like a scroll bar that will pop up, and it'll show all the stories that particular reader has been reading that week, and it'll give them a chance to choose one as their fave, or that they've been reading recently. So it's a ranking system that is reader votes, essentially, but it gives the authors a lot more visibility if they can make it onto that top fave list.
Got it. So now, I'm going to digress just a moment here. So when I went in and started looking first time into doing Vella, it offered me a bunch of free tokens to get started.
Yes.
It offered me, I don't know, it was 1,000. It was like, how does that work that you get these free tokens for starters, and how is it established how many you're going to get?
That's a funny question. So Amazon keeps increasing the amount of free tokens they're giving to readers. I think because they're still building the platform, they're hoping to bring readers in using the free token incentive. So at first, they were offering 200 free tokens, then they did a 500. They've done some special promotions recently for Kindle Unlimited users where they got additional free tokens. But
That's why
so
I got
far,
1500s because I'm at Kindle
yes,
Unlimited.
it's a lot.
Yeah.
So that means that we don't, it's on our dashboards as authors, we can see episodes that were redeemed with that, like with free tokens, but we're getting paid for them still from Amazon.
Oh, you do? I thought you couldn't
Yes.
get paid if I didn't buy the tokens.
So as of right now, Amazon is still compensating authors for free tokens. We don't get paid for the first 3 episodes that are always free, but we get paid for any tokens that are used, even if they were promotion from Amazon that are free. I don't know how long.
Now I don't have to worry about feeling bad that I'm.
You don't have to worry about it. Amazon is still paying us for those tokens.
Okay, good. So that's how that works then. So now on buying tokens, are those, how do you get tokens?
So normally you would, if you don't have the free ones, you would purchase a package of tokens, and they have different tiers that you can buy in bulk. If you buy the larger package, your cost per token is a little bit less. Readers sometimes balk at the cost of tokens for the stories, but my fellow authors and I who write on Bella have done the math, and essentially it comes down usually to pennies per episode that you're spending, depending on the word count, because the token cost of each episode is directly determined by that episode's word count. Right. So if you're paying more for an episode, it's because it's a longer episode.
Okay. Yeah, I want to make sure people understood that too, because I was like, why is this in 22 tokens and this one's 35 tokens? Then I realized this is a longer chapter.
Yeah, I feel like it's not necessarily clearly explained anywhere on Bella, but that is how the cost of each episode is determined.
Got it. All right, so we've gone through follow and fave. Now there's crowns.
Yes, so if you see a crown on the story icon, that means that story is currently on the top faved list. If a story drops below that 250 mark for the top 250 faves, the crown disappears. So that's an easy way for readers to know as they're browsing stories which ones are currently top faved.
Okay, and then reviews, because that seems to be a bit different too. Then I'm used to Amazon reviews or Goodreads reviews, but this seems to be different.
It's kind of different, but it's kind of the same. So the reviews are basically like leaving a review for an ebook, but the difference is that you may not have read the whole story yet. So some readers are leaving a review after the first couple of episodes. Others are leaving a review after they're halfway through a story. So it's not always, they may not always have a full picture of what a story is actually doing or the purpose of the story. So it's a little bit different in that sense. We also have seen a lot of people leaving reviews about Bella itself because it's a new platform and people are getting used to it. So sometimes they'll leave a review about Bella versus a review on the story, which you don't really see people doing so much on ebooks, but it does happen on Bella.
Right. So when you get a review like on Amazon, you get your 3-star, 4-star, 5-star, whatever it is, and whatever increment of that, and then the number of. Does it work the same way with Bella?
It does. So when you're on a story's landing page, you can see their star rating and the number of reviews that they have, like you would on an ebook.
Okay. So now I'm going through the each installment, then you can do a like for that installment, which isn't a like for the book, it's just a like for that installment. So by the time you get through a 50 episodic story, you can have, in essence, you could put 50 likes on that.
Yes, those are, they have what they call thumbs up on Kindle Bella. So at the end of every episode, there is a thumb. And if you click it, then it adds to the overall thumbs up count for that story, which on the landing page for each story, you can also see its thumbs up count. Not all readers leave thumbs up. So it may have way more readers than it has those likes, but that is a feature that readers can use, and it actually does affect author compensation. So there are a lot of things on Bella that affect author compensation. We can talk about that later if you want.
Yeah, we definitely will, because I want people to know about this and get an idea of how it works. So how many stories have you actually published on Bella? There's the one I'm reading.
Right now Yeah, I have two. I just launched a second one. My main one is Macchiato's Fairy Princes and Other Things That Happen at Midnight, the one that you were reading. It's a YA fantasy.
Right.
But I also just launched a YA paranormal romantic comedy. And it's just a silly story that I started writing a few years ago where I was actually spinning the plot for each chapter and filling my spinners with reader suggestions. And then I never did anything with it, and it was partially finished. So I've sort of pulled it back out and dusted it off, and I'm using it on Bella. So
Okay. So then, do authors ever run multiple storylines on Vela?
yes, I have some friends who have several different stories going on Bella. Some of them interconnect in the same overall universe. Some of them are completely separate. One of my friends has, I think, like 5 stories going at once that she's actively posting. Well, she might be actively posting on 3. She has a lot of stories going on Bella. She's doing really well.
That seems very challenging. It seems like an amazing talent in and of itself to be able to do that, to keep those lines independently going and being
Yes.
posted weekly. Now, obviously, the more you, is there an optimum frequency for posting on Vela?
Minimum of once a week. That's what Amazon itself recommends to us as authors, minimum of once a week. There are people who post daily. There are people who post 2 or 3 times a week, but at least once a week is recommended.
Okay. And then if you don't do that, what are the consequences?
Usually you'll start losing readers because they'll just forget about your story. The other consequence is you will probably not receive as big of a bonus for compensation because part of the bonus is frequency of posting is one of the factors that determines the bonus amounts every month.
Good. So now on this bonus thing, because that's something I learned about in the last video I watched. So, okay, bonus, cool. And then they gave this huge numbers, and whoa, that's a lot of bonus.
Yes. Yeah, so Kindlevella is set up. If you watch the initial videos with the people who created it, it was their idea from the start that there would be 2 different types of compensation combined. One of them is direct. We get a direct cut of every token that's redeemed, and then there's the bonuses. The tokens themselves would not pay us very much because they're low cost for the readers. But the bonuses are where compensation really becomes worthwhile for an author on Bella. And it's set up similar to how Kindle Unlimited is set up. So there's a pool every month, and it's increasing as Vela grows. And then that pool is divided among the authors who qualify for bonuses. And of course, the ones that are ranked higher and have more activity on their stories get much larger bonuses. And then the ones who don't have as much activity might get smaller bonuses. And then if you're not really posting and you don't have activity, you may not qualify for a bonus at all. So that's kind of how it's set up. I never know exactly how much I'm going to get in a bonus every month. But so far, it's been pretty generous. I've made more with my story on Bella than I would have made so far had I posted it as an ebook, most likely.
Wow. Now, does it grow as you continue on because you build up more and more readership?
Yes. So my bonuses have been steadily growing. I think my peak month was maybe in January, but last month was my second best. And I'm not making nearly as much with mine as some of my friends are making. Some of their bonuses are insane. My one friend that's doing the multiple stories, this is now her full-time thing. And she has a huge following. Her story has been ranked #2 for the last month. And she's making well into 5 figures a month with her story.
Wow.
Overall.
I mean, that's great.
So,
If she gets only, you said well into, but it's minimally then $10,000 a month. That's $120,000 career right there.
yes.
And obviously it's not going to stay just at $10,000.
Yes, and there's a chance, just like with Kindle Unlimited when it first started, because it functions on the same sort of bonus pool. As more authors come into Vela, the bonus is split among more authors, so there's a chance that the eventually how lucrative the bonuses are is going to change. But for right now, if you can work Kindle Vela and really connect with the right audience, it's very worth doing. So.
Wow, that's good to know. But it would seem also that as the readership grows, that the amount going into the pot would grow as well.
Yes. So, like I said, they've been increasing the overall bonus pool steadily every month. I would assume that if eventually, if they get tons more readers, then they're going to increase that pool in, keeping steady with that. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's good. So this, it seems almost like the episodic stuff, which you had either in the pulp magazines. Sometimes you'd have a story every month coming out. Until they got through a whole novel. You also had some of the, whether it be Zorro or whether it being the Lone Ranger or any of those other serial episodic type things, that this would be something like that, because you have to end it in a cliffhanger, which was an absolute in Pulp Fiction days.
Yes. Yeah. I find this way of writing fascinating. I actually really enjoy writing this way, where I know that I need that cliffhanger every episode. I know that the readers are coming back every week.
Right.
It's really interesting for me.
That's great. Yeah, there's one of the books I just finished reading was Mission Earth by Orrin Hubbard, and he wrote it. It was a 92 parts. When he wrote it, it was 1.2 million words, and they broke it into 10 books because it was like like I said, 1.2 million words at one go. He wrote it in 8 months. So,
Wow.
yeah,
That's a lot in 8 months.
exactly. And so it was turned into 10 volumes, and each one of the volumes became a New York Times bestseller. But every part ended in a cliffhanger, because because he used to write during the pulp days when you had to end in a cliffhanger, and he wrote also for Hollywood movie scripts, helping on that stuff. So he was a master of the cliffhanger and the importance of that to
Wow.
set a person along to the next, the next episode. So, I mean, it's just funny reading your stuff. Like I said, I'm reading this one here in the macchiatos. Which, whatever reason, every time I start listening to it, I have to go get a coffee, whatever. She works at a coffee shop, and that's the beginning of the title. But it's fun reading. And actually, one thing I really enjoy about it too, my schedule's crazy. So I can sit down and I can read an episode in one go and then get back to, it doesn't take me long to get through it, but it's just really fun. And then I got to read the next one. So it sets me up. So whether it's going to be a day or a week or whatever later, in this case here with your story, it's already all done. So I'm only on episode 6 now out of 50, whatever. So I got enough to keep me going for a bit here. But that's one thing that's really good about these specifically is if you got a crazy schedule, being able to just enjoy a story and then not worry about, okay, I got to keep on going. You don't have to threaten your sleep to be able to enjoy a story.
Yes, I think when they initially started Kindle Vella, that was kind of their goal, was to fit into people's busy lives, where you could just read a story in little snippets and then come back next week for the next part. So some of them are fully completed where you can binge if you want to, but it's also broken into those episodes where if you want to stop, there's an easy stopping point every few thousand words at most.
Right.
So
No, that was really good on that. And I mean, what astonished me the most is that I've been doing this podcast for 3 years. And the first time I heard the word Vella was when you originated it a few months ago. And I said, Vella, what the heck is Vella? And then I started looking it up, and yes. And then who was it? Was it Mark or somebody wrote to me and he posted something about when are you going to do that interview with Crystal?
Oh, that was probably Chris Hinkle. I think he mentioned to me that he.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So he said, well, it's not, oh, heck, I forgot about that. I had it note, but I have, just time just zooms whether you're having fun or not. So it was, that's when I then wrote to you saying, Chris nudged me on this thing and I'd forgotten about it. So then started seriously looking at it. And I was like, wow, how did I not ever even hear about this, let alone talk to somebody about it? Because it's been over a year that's already been going on.
Yeah, I've been surprised at how little the word has actually gotten out about Bella overall.
Yeah.
I know Candace was the one who initially commented on your post on Facebook and suggested a podcast about Bella, but there's, so many people in my circles just don't know about it.
Yeah.
So I think Amazon is starting to do like Facebook ads and try to get the word out. They've been doing that for a few months, but there's definitely still a lot of growth potential because a lot of people just don't know about it yet.
No, which is great. And I mean, fortunately, this podcast now gets about 1.5 million listens each. So hopefully this gets the word out too, so people will
That's awesome.
be
Yeah.
able to. It's definitely grown a lot too. So yeah, so we'll definitely be, the title of this will have the Vela in there, the Kindle Vela. So now you write YA fiction.
Yes.
What type of stories now do you find on Vela?
Vela has all kinds of stories. They have some genres that I don't write at all, like adult romance, that type of stuff.
Right.
But they also, I mean, all different genres. There's horror, there's thriller, there's mystery. There's even a children's story section, but I don't think it's doing very well because not very many parents are going to put their kid on Amazon to read children's stories, especially with not knowing about Bella. But yeah, all different genres. A lot of my friends write in some form of romance, like fantasy romance, that type of thing. Fantasy does pretty well on Bella. Romance is probably the top.
Well, it's the
Bella
top
category.
everywhere. It's the top everywhere.
Yes.
So, all right. Do they do nonfiction as well?
Yes, they have a nonfiction category, young adult in general, usually young adult fantasy.
Okay.
My stories usually have a romance,
Yeah.
but that's pretty common for YA in general.
For sure.
Yeah, so that's mostly what I write.
Okay. Yeah. So have you found a difference? So like you've been doing Vela now since it started a year ago, and then you've also been posting your ebooks on KDP. Do you find that being successful on Vela helps your ebooks on Amazon? Or is there any type of a correlation between sales improvement?
Not so far, but Vela is still developing, and so they're always adding new features every so often. One of the things they recently added that wasn't in place at first is Vela stories to our Amazon author pages. At first, they were completely separate. So now that they're linked, I think there's more of a potential for there to be crossover because now our names on our Kindle Vela stories are clickable to go to our author page with our other stuff. Previously, there wasn't a direct path for a reader to follow to go to your other stuff. So I think that we'll probably see that improving in terms of crossover. The other interesting thing with Vela is that they're not exclusive. So you can write a story on Vela and then publish it as an ebook later. They have no restriction against that. They just have a time period you have to wait.
Okay. Now, does Vela link to your social media too?
It does not link directly, but we're allowed to post. So at every episode, at the end, there is an author note that we can include if we want to, and we're allowed to post about our social media in the author notes. But they won't be hyperlinked. People will still have to basically go look up our username somewhere. Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense then. Now, Vela, is it still like trial stage where it's US only, or is it now spread into Canada and to other major English speaking countries, or where does it stand right now on growth?
It's still US only right now. They've been sort of hesitant to give any kind of timeline on when they are going to expand, but I would assume that their plan is to eventually expand in the same way that their regular ebook store, their KDP store, is international. But so far, at first when Bella launched, it was only available in particular devices. You couldn't even use it in a regular Kindle. You could only use it on an iPhone or directly on the browser. And now they've expanded it to different devices. So I'm assuming that they're just still working on expanding it into international. I know I have author friends in other countries too who are eager for it to go international so they can use it. But right now it's limited to the US for readers and for authors who are posting.
Got it. Now, can somebody in Canada then access the app? Can they access that link from Canada on the US type thing, or is that?
So as far as I know, Vela is at Amazon.com, but if they're able to access the .com landing page, then they might be able to read Vela stories. For authors, I know for sure it's limited to US only. But I think I'm not sure in the app. I guess it would depend on how their app is set up and whether they're able to access general like Amazon.com store stuff in their app. But I'm hoping eventually they're going to just expand it internationally where everyone can easily access it.
Right. So right now it's US only. And if you're clever enough and some type of a geek that can go in and get around some of those guidelines, then you're good. Are there, I know on some apps because of the visual impaired, where you can actually have the your favorite voice read to you. Does Vela set up with that?
I heard that they briefly had that feature or were testing that feature, but I don't know that it's standard yet. I'm hoping that they're going to have that soon because there are lots of people who, because they commute and they'd rather listen as they're driving, or, there's a lot of requests and demand for that feature. So I'm hoping that's something they'll add for sure.
Right. Okay, good. So you were like a rock star on Wattpad a couple years ago. How does now Wattpad, does that pay you any money, or that's just something that gave you visibility?
Um, so Wattpad actually has kind of two different tiers. So there's free, which is where I was initially, and all your stories are free and you don't get paid. It's just more for visibility. But then I eventually got invited into the Wattpad Stars program, which is their program that it's the pool that they pull from when they decide to make a story paid or to opt a story for a television show and all of those things. I'm no longer posting on Wattpad, but my friend and I had a story that won a Waddy Award, and we were invited into the Stars program for a while. So
It wasn't picked up by Netflix, and you got your option there for $500,000. That you missed that
no,
one.
not so far. No. Yeah, I don't think we may not have stayed in the Stars program long enough. We just decided for our goals, it wasn't really a good fit for us because of course, Wattpad had a certain posting schedule they wanted us to stick to and all kinds of different things. And so we just, um, they were also requesting certain types of stories that weren't necessarily the types of things we write. So it just ended up not being a good fit for us to stay in long term, but we were really excited to have been invited in
Sure.
to that program and to have hit that milestone for sure.
Okay, so I just because you noticed I noted on your bio or something like that you had 1.5 million reads on that. I was like, that was,
did. I had a silly YA rom com that just went crazy on there, and it had 1.5 million reads.
which is
And
way cool.
yeah, it was really, really cool. And it got featured, and then it just took off, and my phone was blowing up with Wattpad notifications. It was crazy.
So it was fun to be able to have that and just
It was fun. And on Wattpad, the readers could leave comments on each. They could highlight and leave a comment on a specific line if they wanted to. So it was very interactive, and I really enjoyed that part of it for sure.
right. Oh, good. All right. So Vela is still pretty young. So what kind of things should an author look forward to in the coming short term with Vela?
Well, it's hard to say exactly because, like I said, Amazon has been sort of quiet about what they're releasing.
Mhm.
But I do know that they are constantly expanding their reader interaction features. So recently we got the polls feature added where we can put a poll at the end of an episode and readers can vote. So you can use that in all different kinds of ways. You can either get feedback on your episodes or what they want to happen next, or you can just ask, hey, have you checked out my social media, yes or no, and kind of, or how did you find my story? So there's lots of different uses for those polls, but that's a new feature that they didn't originally have. So I think that they're striving to make this a fun, interactive experience for the authors and the readers. So I would predict that we see more of those types of features rolling out as it builds.
Okay. Now, you've experienced a fair amount of success. So now I want to give some guidelines or some yardsticks and stuff like that for the aspiring writer, or even not an aspiring, just a writer that here's a new platform they could take advantage of to monetize their intellectual properties. So now, when you go into working with Vela, what would you recommend as some of the cautionary tales, things to watch out for when getting in there?
So one thing maybe to think about is whether your story is well suited for a serial format, because I've had some friends who have tried Bella, but really they were just taking a book and kind of trying to break it up into chunks, and it didn't work as well for readers that way. And so then they were disappointed in, the readership and the results that they ended up getting from that. The other thing would be that although, like I said, you can still post it as an ebook later, if you're posting it on Vella, it's published now. So if you were hoping to get a book deal for this story or something like that in the future, that's not one that you would want to put on Vella. I think just being clear on your goals for your writing and what it is that you're trying to do is important when you're going in.
Okay. You did the L. Ron Hubbard Writers of the Future online writing workshop. Also, when that first came out, you're in the front of all these curves of publishing firsts. So, because that's when Emily first interviewed you, you're one of the first ones to take that online course. Mm-hmm. So, was there a particular favorite article or essay from Mr. Hubbard that you read on that stands out? And I know we're going to address this point on suspense because that's what we've been addressing on this whole thing with what gets the person going through Vella. But any particular essay that was of significance to you?
So I believe it's one called Art. I don't remember the exact name. But in that article, he was discussing the importance of communicating with your reader. So I guess what clicked for me with that was that sometimes as a writer, as we're trying to polish, we can actually lose some of the impact on the reader. The readers aren't
pulling a reader along in Vella is this article, which is on the online course too, called Suspense by L. Ron Hubbard. And I just want to read the first couple paragraphs here because I think that's what people are looking to achieve. Next to checks, the most intangible thing in this business of writing is that quantity suspense. It is quite as elusive as editorial praise, as hard to corner and recognize as a contract writer. But without any fear of being contradicted, I can state that suspense, or rather the lack of it, is probably responsible for more rejects than telling the editor he is wrong. And you're not writing to an editor, you've got thousands of editors who are having to read this to say, okay, yeah, this is worth continuing and in this case, investing their tokens into to keep on going. You've got to have that suspense.
Absolutely. Especially because at the end of every episode, there is that threshold that the reader has to choose whether to unlock the next episode or not. So suspense is really key to keeping the reader engaged and keeping them reading.
Yeah, and that free online writing workshop, and again, I'm going to mention it is free, and we've had over 6,000 people on this course now since it first launched at the start of the pandemic. But it's such vital information that a writer has got to be able to get, and it's all the more so with what you're doing here in Vella. If you don't have that reason for a guy to say, okay, click, here's my next coins coming to, sock it to me again, you're out of there. And Definitely. It seems like
that was a really helpful online course for sure.
Yeah, it seems like some of these things that you've been saying are even more important. Like people need to really listen to this and pay attention to this as well, because as more people join Vella, right now we're going to be reaching a lot of people, and more people will be joining Vella to be able to enter this. And the whole thing with Writers of the Future, we don't view anybody as competition. We just more companions to work with. But all the more reason to have something good, because there is more choice for an audience to go for. So if whatever your genre of choice is, you're going to need to have everything going in your favor so that they pick you over someone else, or continue picking you. Maybe they start off, okay, I'll check 10 different authors because it's just there's not much of an investment for one episode of any storyline. So, well, actually, that brings up another question then too, because when you start a story on Vella, the first few episodes are free automatically, aren't they?
Yes, the first 3 are automatically free. So it's really easy for a reader to kind of test the story and see if they like it before they invest any tokens in it.
Okay. So that makes sense. So then you've got 3 shots to either score that first run or to strike out, one or the other.
Yes, 3 chances to either catch the reader or lose them entirely. Yep.
Yeah. So, okay, so we were discussing cautionary tales, cautionary things that you recommend for a person addressing Vela to watch for? So one is obviously having a story that fits into that episodic format.
Yes.
What's the actual importance of having an editor going through your story first? Like, I'm pretty particular. If I see a story that's full of typos, one in 100 pages is full of typos for me.
Yes.
It's a turnoff. So how does that fit?
That's a really good point. A caution that I would definitely advise new Vela authors. Don't think of it as your first draft, even though you might be writing it episodically week to week. I have a team of alpha readers who look at mine before they ever go up on Vela. I have an editor who looks at mine. And it doesn't have to be, if you can't afford a pro editor, mine is literally a friend of mine who's just really talented with editing. So, but it is important to make sure that what you're putting out there is polished content because readers are paying for it. They're going to be using tokens to unlock your stories, and if they are seeing lots of errors, they're probably just going to stop reading. So it would be way better if to present something that is representative of what you're hoping to establish as your brand as an author so you can start building an audience.
Right. Now, also, you do have the ability to go to Writers of the Future forum, because there you'll find people that, like-minded souls that will be there and willing to help you, because a win for one is a win for all in Writers of the Future.
Yes.
There's also Wolf Moon, who you work with as well.
Yes. So I am so thankful for what we call the Wolf Pack. So we're just a group of authors. Wolf Moon is our mentor, and I've learned so much from him about story writing. But we really just are there to help each other. So I have a crit team that I got through the forums, but we're all Wolf Pack. And we communicate, we cheer each other on, we read each other's stories. And that's been very, very helpful for me, especially when I was first getting into short story writing. Mm-hmm. And a lot of those same skills are translating over now to episodic writing because every chapter has to have a hook and I have to keep the readers engaged. So.
Right. Well, that sounds good. And it just dawned on me that you're actually a novelist as a Vela author.
Yes. It's funny because one of the first things Moon said to me when I started taking his workshops was that I was a novelist masquerading as a short story writer because he was constantly reminding me I was trying to cram what he called trying to cram a whole oak tree into a bonsai. So for me, Vela is a really cool format because I have that space to kind of write the sprawling stories that I really love to write, but I also have to keep it tight and keep interest and keep the suspense going. So it's sort of a melding of the two skills.
Okay. Now, with another thing I just realized too on Vela, like when you submit a story on Amazon, you upload it on KDP or send something out to a publisher, you've got a certain format you do that, you upload it and it gets converted into a book format. But on Vela, it doesn't work like that.
No. So on Vela, they have a dashboard similar to the KDP dashboard. We do have to submit our episodes ahead of time to go through their approval process. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't compile into an ebook. It compiles into basically a landing page for the story where readers can click through the different episodes.
But it's not, because I know on an ebook, you got your footers, you got your pages, and in Vela, it's not pages. You got one long scroll.
Yes, it's way easier as an author. There's very little formatting. You just copy paste it into their processing thing in the dashboard. And they do have minimal formatting you can do there, like bold italics, that kind of stuff. But it doesn't require the intense formatting that an ebook requires before upload.
But you have to have your proofreading done and any copy editing done before you actually upload.
Yes, because whatever you upload is what goes to the reader. So Amazon doesn't have a proofreading team. They're basically scanning it for whether it breaches any of their terms of conduct or terms of service or anything. So all the proofreading, all the editing needs to be done before you actually put it into Vela.
Got it. All right, so now on Vela then, any other tips or do's and don'ts? Because each episode, somebody can go in and post comments. So I don't know how close it is to social media, but social media can get very vitriolic and get very upsetting. And if you got thin skin, it's definitely no place for you to be. Is there any, best practices that you've found on how to handle somebody if someone's got a complaint? Because when it's on there, and so.
Yes. So Bella currently doesn't allow readers to comment on every episode, but they can leave reviews on the story as a whole. And then, of course, we're encouraged as authors to direct people to our social media, so there's a chance of readers finding us there and sending angry messages or whatever. Some of my friends run Facebook ads for their stories, and they get comments on the Facebook ads. So I would say, for me at least, is a combination of realizing that not everyone is my target audience, and then also just being kind. Because sometimes the comments that are left, just like maybe that person's just really having a bad day. I'm just gonna let that go.
You're so nice. It's true though, and that's a policy I've definitely maintained with Writers of the Future. I don't go political. I don't go religion. I don't go anything that if someone's going to be hate, if it gets nasty, I will hide that comment because the whole thing of the Writers of the Future is for everybody, so I don't have a particular slant that I'm taking.
Right.
So it really is a one size fits all with that program there, except for haters, so if you got somebody that's going to be a troll, a hater, they are definitely not welcome. And so I'm just curious then, because how much is open to somebody coming in and just really dumping on you that can be very off-putting for you as an author?
Yes, I think it's not so much worse than what you would find in ebook reviews on Amazon, because they do kind of have the direct reader feedback right now limited to just the story reviews, and then of course whether or not they choose to thumbs up an episode or whatever. So I think it's the same thing I had to learn with ebook reviews, is to have a little bit of a thick skin and just try to deal with things tactfully. A lot of times you just don't respond as an author, you just let it be. The other really helpful thing is that there is a group of us who are all Vela authors who support each other. So we have a Discord chat, and in one of the Discords, somebody set up a channel. It's called the Black Hole of Negativity. And whenever we get something that really bothers us, throw it into the black hole of negativity. And then we can come in and be like, oh, I feel that, and just support each other. Without making it a negative thing, but just somewhere to kind of vent that frustration and then let it vanish into the black hole so that it doesn't wear us down.
That's smart.
So that's been helpful, as well as to have that community of Vela authors who are doing it alongside and supporting each other.
That's good. And there's also the fact that when you have somebody who's giving you the negative stuff, negative comments, it always stands that the best statistic you have for your success as an author, and I imagine applies with Vela, are more people reading your stuff.
Yes.
So if you have more readers, then obviously it's good, And so if you've got somebody coming in and going blah, blah, blah all over you, it's that, it's their problem, not your problem, because you're continuing to expand as an author.
Yes, so not everyone is going to be my ideal reader or my target audience. And that's something that I've had to just accept. I cannot please every single person in the universe. So understanding what my audience really does enjoy, especially a young adult audience, understanding the tropes they're looking for, the things they enjoy, that helps me stay focused on serving those readers and reaching those readers instead of, if I get negative comments. So.
Yeah, because the reason I'm bringing this up is, one, realize it's going to happen, but two, it's not something that you need to address with your writing. You got to keep on doing your thing. You don't try to do something to please someone that's not interested in being pleased.
Yes, some people will never be pleased, right?
No, their whole gig is just to be able to, I'm going to see if I can bring you down. And somebody like yourself is going to be a luscious target. She's too darn happy. She's too darn, fun. So let's see what we can do to kind of let's see if we can whittle away at that, whatever type thing. So people have to really understand that, and that applies to any form of writing,
Yes.
or art for that matter, because the more artistic you are, the more you're going to be inclined to find those